mindset shifts. They make it sound so easy. But if your brain is anything like mine, it feels like it's playing tricks on you. When you try to think positive, you fall back into maybe negative thinking. In psychiatry, we actually have this term called distorted thinking. And distorted thinking is just that. It is a distorted way of processing information and a distorted way of settling into a belief system. Now, this could be a very rigid way of thinking, or it could be kind of like me where I'm always trying to fight it. I know that it's distorted. I know that it's not serving me well, and yet I still kind of fall back into it. If you look in the descriptions, you will see a worksheet called Choice Opportunity about Distorted Thinking. I want you to download that and go over these things with me. It's a way to evaluate your distorted thinking so that it brings it to the surface, to the forefront of your mind, so that you can actually make that mindset shift that everyone talks about. So the first one is all or nothing thinking. Sometimes you see this in belief systems, you see this in politics, where people have a very bipolar kind of opposite view. People are, all into like, this is the absolute truth, and the opposite of that, there's no way that that is true. That is kind of all or nothing thinking when you think of community. But we can also have those things inside of us. And for me, it manifests kind of as fight or flight, right? I'm all in for something. I will do whatever it takes. But then if I feel like I'm not going to win or I'm not going to be successful, I sometimes want to run. Now, I'm not a quitter. There's nothing in my life that I've ever quit. But I have this constant back and forth in my mind, and I can relate to just in the business, and sometimes I'm fighting for success, and it feels like it's not going to work out, and I'll retreat kind of more privately. I will feel like quitting, right? And then I'll go back, and I constantly will be having this kind of fight or flight inside internally. That's a type of distorted thinking, right? There is balance in that. And so think about your all or nothing thinking. What is the balance to that? And what can you do to make that mindset shift, right? These mindset shifts are about evaluating the distorted thinking so that you can have a more balanced approach. Another one is blanket statements. Some of the blanket statements, like you'll hear me talk about using a thought map to really learn how to think through your problems and see patterns within, your patterns within your choices and your thoughts. And sometimes I will get to what I call core connections, and they'll be blanket statements. No one loves me, or this is never going to work out. These are like blanket statements. They're kind of that all or nothing, but it's, using absolute words, always, everyone, when if you actually stop and think about it, you know that that's not true. And it's part of my perfectionism as well. Like, I think that everyone needs to love me in order for me to think anyone loves me, right? Again, that is distorted thinking. And I've been working on these things for a long time. So sometimes it's hard for me to really give true examples. But I'll notice that when I'm feeling down, when I'm overwhelmed, when I'm stressed, my brain goes back to these, comfortable, distorted thought processes. So let's bring those to the surface, learn about yourself so that you can do that mindset shift. Assumptions is another one. One of the things that I I'm very aware of is that as I was fighting for my children, and my son was diagnosed with a very rare neurodegenerative condition, and I really believed that if I did lots of hard work, lots of research, got him to the best doctors in the world, that I would be able to save his life, heal him from this disorder, and ultimately save my family. If you know my story, you know that I lost both Reggie, Maya, and will eventually lose my husband to this very rare disorder. And what this has done in my thought process is made a very negative assumption that hard work does not equal success, right? When you're young, everyone says, if you work hard, you'll be successful. And I spent 15 years working really hard for a very specific goal. And now I have this distorted thinking as a result of that I have to fight, right? And probably need to get out of that fight or flight, right? What I talked about before with that all or nothing. But it is a distorted thinking that comes to the surface when I'm down, when I feel like I'm working hard and success is not coming. But those are assumptions based on my past, but they are distorted. So if I can identify them as distorted, I can make that mindset shift. Catastrophizing is another one, right? Something bad happens, I make a mistake, you make a mistake, and you feel like it's the end of the world. Like, this is it. You're not going to be successful. You've made this horrible mistake. Nothing's going to work. When you catastrophize, when you make it like the worst case scenario, or your mind always goes to that worst case scenario, that is catastrophizing. And that is a type of distorted thinking. Bring that to the surface. You're not going to have all of these, but you're going to have one or two that you revert to when you're down, when your brain is playing tricks on you, right? But educating yourself, empowering yourself to, these are the places that I go when I'm not in a good place. And I'm going to acknowledge that so that I can make that mindset shift. The last one is blaming. I see this a lot with my patients and, kind of their life situation. You'll see this with, young teenagers, that it's, the parents' fault, or even adults who had a very difficult childhood will blame their current mood and mental state, mindset to their past, blaming the country in which you live, the economics in which you were born into. Those are distorted thinking. Now, you can identify those as barriers, right? We all have barriers to our success, but they are just barriers. And so there's a difference between identifying things as barriers that I need to overcome versus blaming. Blaming is a distorted thinking. So just identify those distorted thinking. Don't give them too much energy, right? It's just a tool in order to empower you to be stronger in that mindset shift. Right? So what are the three things you can do? You can educate yourself, identify those things, acknowledge how they're impacting your mood so that you can make those mindset shifts to the positive and positive growth. And then you can also take some time to learn what is dialectical thinking. And I have a whole video on dialectical thinking, so watch that next.